Hey y'all. So I am mic'd on two different levels today. I have my camera and my phone going. So we're gonna see how this works out. We're gonna see. I'm a little nervous today, y'all. Because this conversation is um maybe controversial a little bit. Like people don't like when you talk about colorism, okay? So that's what we're gonna talk about today. And you know I can ramble, honey. So I have my notes to organize my thoughts. And we're just going to give it a go, okay? It's an open discussion, but I'm going to be honest about the way I feel in my thoughts, okay? So, what is colorism, okay? Uh, Form of discrimination or prejudice based on skin tone, usually from those within a similar ethnic group. That's the gist of what you can get from Google, but I want to emphasize that with colorism, there's a form of oppression that's happening. There's a hierarchy placed on skin tone. The hierarchy of skin tone is based on a proximity to whiteness. Okay. In terms of racism, for example, just to kind of show the comparisons, in terms of racism, that hierarchy looks like white, black, and then you have the other ethnic groups kind of in between. So with colorism, the hierarchy is lightest shades within the same ethnic group, usually lightest shades and the darkest shades. Okay. Um, Same basis, two different things. Okay. Um, Colorism is not specific to the Black community. I remember being in high school and we were on like the football field during gym, and there were two Hispanic girls, Mexican specifically. That doesn't really matter. But anyway, there were two Hispanic girls, and like we were friends or whatever, but they were having their own conversation, their own side conversation. And basically, in short, they were talking about getting darker and like, that being a negative thing. And I remember in high school, like, because I didn't know that other races dealt with that until the age of like 16, 17. Like it's just a wait a minute moment. Like, what? But anyway, I do want to point out that it's not specific to the Black community. Okay. There are just certain layers that we have to kind of peel back today. So the importance of discussing colorism, or I guess the historical roots of colorism. Historically, especially in terms of colonization, the lighter you were, the more you could assimilate. The more you can assimilate, the safer you are, especially here in the US, in a post-slavery world. Okay. The safer you were, the better your living conditions, the more opportunities are available to you. So historically, there was a value, I want to emphasize that word, placed on having lighter skin. Okay. Beauty standards are based off the values of those in power. So what happens? We get these Eurocentric beauty standards, right? And simply put, or maybe bluntly put, the closer you are to the appearance of fair skin or lighter skin, the better. And these standards hold weight for colorists because the thought is the lighter the skin, the more you're likely to be feminine. And that's for both men and women. Like if you notice like the jokes that kind of happen between the Black community, like a lighter skinned man is seen as like I don't know, I guess like flirty but in like a cute way. Like they make a joke about Drake and I don't know, other artists that are light skinned being very soft. But a darker man is supposed to be more hard, more aggressive. And that's some of the jokes are funny. I can take a joke, but there's also a harmful layer to that, okay? For colorists, light skin is adjacent to femininity. More confidence, more attractive they are, more approachable, more dainty. More value is placed on the skin tone. That's why Let me preface this. Okay. I don't want to be offensive. I just want to be honest. Okay. Um, okay, but sometimes I guess in the dating world, that's why a white woman can be, in terms of societal standards, like 5 or like an average woman. Okay. But in comparison to a black woman, for certain people, she's a solid 9. And I feel like that leaves a lot of my sisters, black women, I feel like that leaves a lot of them kind of confused. Like, well, she looks kind of, I don't want to use the word basic, but she looks basic, okay? Um, but that's because there's more value placed on the skin tone, okay? So, what am I trying to say? Okay, so the part you're missing is she's getting bonus points, okay? When there's a value placed on the skin tone, white is here, proximity to whiteness is here, and being black is here. So if you're starting here, even if you're a solid 7, this 5 is way above you. You get what I'm saying? And before we get too far on the dating realm and how that works, because that's another conversation in itself, preference does not equal exclusion. Okay. Um, so for example, just because I love the color pink doesn't mean that I'm not gonna wear the color purple. All right. Um, and that's what I'm gonna leave it for now. So let's talk about the impact of colorism. Okay. Impact of media and advertising. So media plays a big part in colorism today. Growing up, I saw if I saw a black woman in media, whether that's entertainment, the news, radio, or locally, she was a lighter skinned black woman. Okay. Now I'm not saying there weren't dark skinned women out here acting and making moves. That's not what I'm saying. But these spaces with high regard seem to be reserved for women of lighter skin. Okay. Black women of lighter skin. Okay. Why is that? Because lighter skin is supposed to be more digestible because of the proximity to whiteness, right? So if I'm an actor and let's say I need a black woman for a role, ooh, this is a touchy subject in 2023. So imagine years back how that was. So if I'm gonna get a black woman for a role, she gonna be as light as I can find her. You get what I'm saying? That's where that comes from. Okay. Um, and as a result, as a result of that whole media portrayal of light skinned versus dark skinned women, um, I feel like as a young girl, when you grow up seeing a lighter skinned woman in these gentle spaces, then the darker skinned women in these not so gentle spaces. For example, in Coming to America, right? I think the lead's name was Lisa, if I can remember. Lisa was painted as soft and sweet and caring and kind. And there's a certain innocence to her, okay? And she had a sister who was dark skinned and portrayed as more aggressive, more promiscuous, okay? But there's another layer here, right? Because dark skinned women are shown usually as more promiscuous growing up, right? Because the second layer is that's because we're less desirable. We have to chase a man to get a man. You got me? And this movie is just one of the examples that I can kind of pull out. But let's talk about even on a local level. So one example that I have, because I want to be kind of quick, but I want to get to the point. Look in the church. Look in your local churches, black churches specifically. Look in your local churches and look at the first lady. A good 8 times out of 10, the first lady has a lighter skin complexion. Every coincidence ain't a coincidence. Okay. All right. And I'm just going to sit that right there because there's so many layers to this. Unfortunately, I can't talk about all of them in one sitting. Okay. But there's misogynistic undertones to colorism too, because a dark skinned black man, I'm sure you've seen it, where they say, "Oh, I don't like black women, or I won't date a dark skinned black woman." It's like the nerve of you, the sheer nerve of you to be black as night and to say you don't like dark skin. It's crazy. What? That makes no sense to me, and there's no way you can spin that to make that make sense to me. Also, something that I forgot to point out in the media, growing up, the music. If you're black and you are in your 20s, you've heard the term red bone. Okay, and a lot of a lot of the songs growing up, especially in like the 20 around 2010, 2000, let's say 2008 to 2016 maybe, you hear a lot of Redbone and she's in high regard, and the rappers, they want a yellow bone or red bone and da 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 da. You don't think that affects our psyche growing up? Because it for sure did. It for sure did. I remember in many occasions in middle school where I struggled on what being dark skinned meant, or what that meant I was supposed to look like or feel like or act like, really. Um, Not only was I dark skinned, but I was a big girl. Well, I'm still a big girl, but not only was I dark skinned, I'm a big dark skinned girl. Okay, so you can imagine. And at the time, I felt like, seeing the media portrayal, at the time, I felt like, okay, so this is what being dark skinned means. This is what, like, this is my role. Like, this is the role that I play in society, right? And I remember, I remember fussing at a guy, y'all, like cussing and everything. Mind you, I'm in middle school. And in this example, I was trying to defend one of my friends. Y'all, I walked up to him, I got in his face, I was cussing, I was probably loud, and I just went off. Ooh, that makes me cringe a little bit, just think about it. But I just remember after that feeling like, because if you know me even a little bit in real life, like, I'm such an introvert. I'm very quiet if I don't know you. Even if I do know you, like, unless we just have some real conversation, like, I'm gonna be more timid, more shy, more standoffish. So for me, an introvert, someone that's shy and timid, to go up to someone I do not know based off something my friend said and to go off on him is crazy. That's crazy. But it's like I took on this persona of what I felt like a dark skinned woman was. Okay. Um, I also remember, maybe I was 13, 14. This is again in middle school, and I was at my cousin's. We're cousins by marriage. They are white. That is relevant to this story. I'm not just, I don't know, pointing that out for no reason. So we're in the pool, floating on our back, y'all. We had a good time, like just enjoying ourselves and talking and just floating. And we did that for like an hour, right? Like, just really had a good time, fun, pool, summertime, cool. I walk in her room after we get out of the pool, and I remember looking in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror and I saw that I was visibly darker. And I can see it. Like, I have a visual of it to this day. And I just remember feeling so scared and defeated, because it's not that I felt that because I was darker that I was ugly. Is the fact that I knew that I was going to be treated more negatively than I already was, because I'm now darker. And again, there's so many layers to colorism. You grow up hearing how other people talk about people that are darker skinned. And it's like, you know that if I get any darker, they're going to talk about me. They're going to talk about me 10 times worse. Um, I have another story. Okay. And it was eighth grade graduation. Everyone is kind of outside, just mingling, I guess, because we have school, like we're in school, but this is graduation, so this is like the last day of school. Everybody's walking around, everybody's mingling, everybody's talking, everybody's celebrating because we just graduated, right? Um, so me and my friend, we went and sat in the shade. We went and sat in the shade, and colorism is a subconscious thing. At least growing up, that's not something that you really talk about. It's more of a subconscious thing, and this affects. Again, this is affecting the psyche, the way you think about yourself. Um, there wasn't a conversation that we had prior to going in the shade. It's just that we decided in unison, let's go sit in the shade. Okay. And why this memory sticks out to me is because I had a friend um, walk up to us and he was like, why are y'all sitting here like being bored and everybody else is just having fun and like, celebrating? And remember, it's not a conversation that we've had with each other. It's just like, and I didn't want to say it out loud, but she said it out loud. She said, because we don't want to get blacker. That's the way she said it. We don't want to get blacker. And I just remember him looking like what? And I'm grateful for that memory because in that moment, I felt so dumb. Um, because it's like, once you hear it out loud, it does sound dumb. Like everybody else is out here celebrating. We just graduated eighth grade. That is a milestone, and we're sitting in the shade. But even though I felt dumb, it wasn't dumb because we're sitting in the shade because we know that if we get darker, we're going to be treated negatively. We're going to be laughed at. We're going to be ridiculed. There's going to be jokes. And one thing about it now, I guess, I guess, I guess outwardly people are more accepting of dark skin. But back then in middle school, honey, we were, what is it? Burnt biscuits. We were roaches. We were, you couldn't see us in the dark. Like all types of jokes. Okay. But it's just so sad because we had a valid reason for being in the shade. But it's like, even though that's a milestone, we couldn't enjoy it because we were worried about how we were going to be treated. Okay. And remember, this is an open discussion. Does reverse colorism exist? Does reverse colorism exist? No. I would not say that reverse colorism exists. And let me tell you why. Hang on, okay? Hear me out. Um, that story about us sitting in the shade. Y'all weren't sitting in the shade with us. Let me explain. A dark-skinned woman approaching you with hostility is misplaced resentment, okay, for how she's been treated as a dark-skinned woman growing up, okay? Does that make it right? No. Is it wrong? Absolutely. It definitely is. And I've seen this. I've seen it happen firsthand, where someone of a darker skin complexion is just for some odd reason lashing out at this lighter skinned woman. Usually, it's usually between women. Um, so I've definitely seen it. But does reverse racism? I'm sorry. Does reverse colorism exist? No, it doesn't. Because let me tell you. Um, at most, at most, it hurts your feelings. Okay, at most, and your negative experience is valid. However, you cannot call it reverse colorism because your opportunities are not affected. You getting a role is not affected. You getting a job or into certain spaces is not affected, even though you are because you're lighter. Because this hierarchy, light skin is up here. Dark skin. Oh, I just bit my jaw. Dark skin is down here. Okay. Um, hmm. The same way reverse racism is a thing. It's same concept, different thing. Okay. Someone calling, I guess, a Caucasian person a saltine it may definitely hurt their feelings. It may be wrong, and I'm not condoning that, but it doesn't affect their opportunities. You get what I'm saying? It kind of stops there. Okay. This is more touchy than I thought it was going to be. Okay. Well, I knew it was going to be touchy, but dang. Um, what am I saying? Racism and colorism both suck for sure. And that's an understatement. People people love to have something where they feel superior. A lot of white people or Caucasian people, a lot of white people or Caucasian people lash out at black people. One, because they blame us for whatever situation that they're going through to some extent. Two, because people like to feel superior. Um, it helps them feel better about their life and their status and what they have going on. This isn't much different from that, at least I'm not mentality. So, for example, I've literally heard, at least I'm not dark as blank, blank, blank. At least I'm not as fat as blank, blank, blank. It makes people feel better. It makes them feel more superior. So when I'm feeling down, people use you as a step stool to kind of lift themselves up. You get what I'm saying? And that gives this false sense of gratification. And it's really sad at the end of the day. That's why I wanted to have this conversation. Um, because why do you need that? Why do you need that? Why do you need to step on someone else to feel better about yourself? Okay. And that's getting into the root of why I'm talking about this. Okay. I feel like more reflection, less projection in society would do wonders. Okay. Um, and I just feel that if we talk about these things and get to the root of how we feel individually on the inside and what's happening on the inside here, and have these uncomfortable conversations, we can be better both individually and therefore as a society. Okay. Funny thing is, like I knew there was this value placed on lighter skin, but I'm thankful because it never necessarily affected how I felt about myself. I definitely went through that phase in middle school where I was kind of trying to figure things out, but I never didn't feel beautiful. You get what I'm saying? It's not that I felt less beautiful within myself, but I knew what the perception of me was going to be. You get what I'm saying? I've always loved, um, I'm not going to say that. I haven't always loved my skin, but I've always known I was beautiful. Okay. I've always, um, I've always felt pretty or known that I was pretty, even if someone else couldn't see it. I don't know. I just appreciate y'all being here, and maybe I'll talk about this more because I feel like I touched on certain things, but I'm a little scared to go too far into it to a degree. But I don't know. I made a promise to myself that I was going to be honest. Um, but again, I appreciate you being here. Oh, I forgot to point out in my video, you guys, I wore this shirt today because you see the different shades of brown and how they're all beautiful. Yeah.